Everything matters because he carries that on a tennis court.
The hard court is even better for him than clay.
It's always down to the player if he allows it. I speak from the heart, it's my opinion. If you don't like it, you can tell me.
2 sets up. Rod Lava Arena is packed to the ceiling. The greatest comeback player in tennis history is standing on the other side of the net, and Alcaraz is winning. Comfortably.
It's maybe contract, maybe some other stuff.
According to coach Patrick Mouratoglou, Carlos's biggest enemy is boredom.
The 5th Grand Slam title is right there. One hand on it. Then the pattern starts. The grip tightens. The shot selection changes. Not because Djokovic gets better. Because Alcaraz, at the exact moment the match is there to be taken, starts playing a different game.
A fascinating player. I mean, that's exactly what the tennis world needed. Very charismatic.
A riskier one. An unnecessary one. The kind that looks like brilliance from the outside and looks like something else entirely when you slow the footage down frame by frame. Boris Becker watched that Australian Open 2025 semi-final and did not look at the scoreline. He looked underneath it. At the thing sitting in plain sight across 2 full seasons of footage, inside every tight third set, every late match collapse, every moment Alcaraz had a match won and found a way to make it complicated.
Many more.
He wins it.
And you think he should not. Why? But because it's not always there.
Becker finally reveals Alcaraz's biggest problem. Not his physicality. Not the Sinner rivalry. Not the weight of back-to-back Wimbledon titles. The real thing. The one no one ever noticed, not the broadcast analysts, not the courtside coaches, not the former champions with Grand Slam pedigree sitting in commentary boxes with every frame of evidence in front of them. You have already seen it happen. You just never had a name for it. Becker does. 6 Grand Slams give him the right to say uncomfortable things about great players. What he says here is genuinely uncomfortable. This channel was built for fans who want the harder conversation. Subscribe before this gets buried. What Becker reveals next reframes everything you thought you knew about Alcaraz.
Everything matters because he carries that on a tennis court.
I mean, he's on a legendary career already.
I think Alcaraz definitely got room for improvement.
Becker did not stumble onto this observation casually. He has been watching Alcaraz since the teenager first appeared on the ATP circuit as a 16-year-old wildcard, raw, electric, and completely unbothered by the occasion. Back then the shot selection made sense. Every risky ball was justified by inexperience. Every unnecessary escalation got filed under potential. The tennis world handed him a developmental excuse and moved on. That excuse expired a long time ago. What Becker identified, and what this breakdown is going to walk through in full, is not a physical limitation. It is not a technical gap that a few weeks on the practice court can sand down. It is a decision-making pattern that activates specifically under match-winning pressure. Not match-losing pressure. Not deficit pressure. The pattern does not appear when Alcaraz is a set down and fighting. It appears when the match is his to close. When the momentum is running in his direction. When the opponent is passive and waiting. That is the moment, the exact moment a champion should go conservative, go clinical, go safe, that Alcaraz reaches for something spectacular instead. Becker knows that feeling from the inside. He built his entire career on aggression. 6 Grand Slam titles came from a serve and volley game that punished hesitation and rewarded instinct. But Becker also learned, painfully, through losses that still sting in interviews decades later, that elite tennis has 2 different skill sets that almost never get discussed as separate things. There is the skill of winning points. Then there is the completely different skill of winning matches. Most players at tour level are exceptional at the first one. The great champions are the ones who master the second. And mastering the second requires knowing when to stop trying to win points brilliantly and start trying to win matches efficiently. Alcaraz at 21 years old is still conflating the two. Watch the Australian Open 2025 semi-final footage with this lens and the whole match reframes itself inside the first 10 minutes. The first set belongs to Alcaraz almost entirely on the strength of controlled aggression, heavy topspin to the Djokovic backhand, good net approaches, first serve percentages sitting comfortably above 60. Nothing reckless. Nothing unnecessary. The tennis is exceptional precisely because it is disciplined. The second set follows the same template. Djokovic is passive. He is waiting. He is doing what Djokovic has always done in 5-set matches, conserving, absorbing, staying patient inside a long game plan that most opponents never even realize is already running. Then Alcaraz goes up 2 sets to love. The match shifts psychologically. The pressure of the occasion, a Grand Slam semi-final, Rod Lava Arena, a potential 5th major title at 21, does not disappear just because he is winning. It compounds. And under that compounded weight, the decision-making changes in a way that is almost invisible to the naked eye in real time but becomes undeniable the moment it is pointed out. The shot selection escalates. Drop shots appear on balls that do not invite drop shots. Down-the-line winners get attempted off short balls that a simpler crosscourt would have handled with zero risk. Second serves get hit with the pace of first serves on points that do not need to be won aggressively. None of these decisions are wrong in isolation. Every single one of them is a shot that Alcaraz can execute and has executed on practice courts and in lower stakes situations hundreds of times. The problem is not capability. The problem is timing. The problem is that each of these decisions arrives at exactly the wrong moment, when the match is in hand, when the opponent is passive, when the only thing that can derail the outcome is self-inflicted damage. Djokovic does not manufacture a comeback in that match. He receives one. This is the distinction Becker draws and the tennis media consistently fails to make. The post-match analysis after that semi-final centered almost entirely on Djokovic's resilience, his ability to raise his level in the fifth set, his mental strength, his legendary capacity to find something extra when everything is against him. All of that is true. None of it is the real story. The real story is that Alcaraz handed back a 2-set lead not because Djokovic became unplayable but because Alcaraz stopped playing the tennis that built the lead in the first place. The conservative, disciplined, high-percentage game that dominated the first 2 sets got abandoned at the precise moment it should have been doubled down on. Becker calls this the difference between playing to win and playing not to lose, but that framing undersells the complexity of what is actually happening. This is not nervousness. Alcaraz is not tightening up in the conventional sense. His movement does not deteriorate. His physical intensity does not drop. The errors are not the passive, tentative, shanked balls of a player who has gone into their shell. They are aggressive errors. Ambitious errors. The errors of a player who is trying harder than the moment requires, reaching for a level of tennis that is above what the situation demands, and paying the price for that miscalibration. The pattern shows up across the broader 2024 season with a consistency that is almost statistical in its regularity. At the US Open 2024 there are passages in the quarterfinal where leads evaporate inside single-service games through unforced errors that arrive in clusters, not spread evenly across the set but concentrated specifically in the moments when a break of serve would effectively close the match out. At Wimbledon 2024, where Alcaraz successfully defended his title against Djokovic in 4 sets, there are still visible windows, particularly in the third set, where the same impulse surfaces and gets managed rather than eliminated. The management is what won that match. The impulse was still there. This is what makes Becker's observation so significant and so specifically qualified. He is not saying Alcaraz cannot win Grand Slams. The evidence makes that argument impossible. 2 Wimbledon titles and a US Open title before the age of 22 is a career resume most professionals never reach. What Becker is saying is more precise and more dangerous for Alcaraz's long-term legacy. He is saying the flaw is consistent enough, and specific enough, and pattern-based enough, that elite opponents at the very top of the game, the Djokovics, the Sinners, the players with the tactical intelligence to recognize a behavioral tendency and build a match plan around exploiting it, will continue to find it and use it. Sinner is the most relevant name in that conversation right now. The head-to-head between Alcaraz and Sinner entering 2025 is competitive on paper but deeply instructive on closer examination. The matches Sinner wins against Alcaraz share a structural similarity that goes beyond surface or tournament context. Sinner plays deep into sets without escalating. He absorbs pressure without redirecting it into unnecessary risk. His shot selection in the closing stages of sets is almost robotically consistent, the same ball, the same pattern, the same depth, regardless of the scoreline. He does not reach for more when he is winning. He maintains exactly what is working and trusts the math to deliver the result. That is not a more exciting style of tennis. It is a more effective one inside the moments that decide Grand Slams. Becker is not the first person to watch Alcaraz and sense something irregular in the decision-making. Several former players have gestured toward it in post-match commentary without ever landing on a precise articulation. The observations tend to dissolve into vague language about mentality and growing up and learning to close matches, the kind of television analysis that sounds insightful in the moment and explains nothing in practice. What separates Becker's take is the specificity. He does not attribute the pattern to youth or nerves or inexperience. He attributes it to a fundamental tennis instinct that was built into Alcaraz's game from the earliest stages of his development, the instinct to solve every problem with the most spectacular available solution, and he argues that instinct, without recalibration, becomes a liability at the highest level precisely because it is unconscious. Alcaraz is not choosing to overplay in those moments. The choice is happening below the level of conscious decision-making. That is what makes it structural rather than correctable through confidence or experience alone. Juan Carlos Ferrero has been Alcaraz's coach since the beginning. Ferrero won the French Open in 2003 and understands Grand Slam pressure from direct experience. The work being done in the Alcaraz camp to address this is not visible in press conferences and not discussed openly, which is itself telling. Coaches who are actively working on a specific technical or tactical flaw rarely advertise the diagnosis. The acknowledgement lives in the results. And the results across 2024 and into 2025 suggest the work is ongoing rather than resolved. The broader tennis conversation tends to position the Alcaraz versus Sinner rivalry as the defining narrative of the next decade, two players in their early 20s at the peak of the sport simultaneously, each with legitimate claims to the world #1 ranking, each capable of winning on every surface. That framing is accurate as far as it goes. What it misses is the asymmetry inside the rivalry. Sinner does not have a version of this problem. His unforced error patterns do not spike in match-winning situations. His shot selection does not escalate when leads appear. The consistency that defines his game is not just a stylistic preference, it is a competitive weapon that specifically targets the kind of vulnerability Becker has identified in Alcaraz. Until the pattern gets addressed at the level Becker is describing, not tactically, not technically, but in terms of the deep competitive instinct that fires in the closing stages of big matches, the ceiling on Alcaraz's Grand Slam count will remain lower than his raw talent justifies. The talent is not in question. The shots are not in question. The athleticism, the variety, the ability to produce moments of tennis that no other player on the current tour can replicate, none of that is the issue. The issue is what happens in the moments between those shots. The decisions that do not make the highlight reel. The choices that occur when the match is there, the crowd is ready, the opponent is passive, and the most dangerous player in world tennis reaches for something the moment does not require. Becker has seen that pattern before. He has lived it. He closed the gap on it across his own career through hard losses in finals and semifinals that taught him the difference between playing his best tennis and playing the right tennis for the situation. He earned the right to name it because he paid the price of not recognizing it soon enough in his own game. The question for Alcaraz, and for every fan watching his career with genuine investment rather than blind loyalty, is not whether the flaw exists. Becker has made that conversation unavoidable now. The question is whether it gets addressed before the sport's most dangerous rivals finish mapping it completely. If this breakdown changed how you watch Alcaraz, if that Australian Open semi-final makes a different kind of sense now than it did the night it happened, share this video with one person who still thinks the result was about Djokovic getting lucky. Subscribe to this channel because this is the level of conversation that lives here permanently. Hit the notification bell because the next breakdown in this series goes deeper into the tactical blueprint Sinner's camp has already built specifically around what Becker just described, and that one is going to be even more uncomfortable for Alcaraz fans than this one was.